This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, whatever you're listening on. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Walker Report, Brad Walker, from Steelers Nation South, Rollo Coughlin. And we're joined tonight by a professional women's tennis player. She's got 9 career titles and 245 wins. May have more than that at this point. That's what I was able to find. But she's also a director and a producer. You can check out her Showtime documentary, Love Means Zero. And it's love in the tennis sense, so keep that in mind. She's currently a tennis director at the Beverly Hills Tennis Club. I assume you're still doing that?
I am.
Perfect. And she's also a 2-time All-American out of USC. So we got Ann White here. Ann, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Nice to see you guys.
You too. So tonight's debate is going to be the greatest women's singles upset in tennis history. If you're a big tennis fan, please check out the archives. We've done greatest rivalries, greatest moment, greatest women's player. And ironically, in that greatest women's player, the guest was Elise Bergen that night. But ironically, every player that we discussed as the greatest of all time happens to be in the upsets tonight. So that funny how that worked out. And as always, we're going to have a Q&A after for Ann about her career. So we're going to jump in this, and I haven't started a show in a long time, so I'm going to start out tonight. And we're going to go with Kathy Horvath upsets Martina Navratilova. So we're going back to 1983 in the French Open. Martina was on a roll, flawless run of 36-0 coming into this, only losing 7 games to that point in 1983. So very impressive start to the year. This is peak Martina here. So everybody knows who Martina Navratilova is, so we know what you're talking about when I say peak Martina. She easily won the first 3 rounds in this tournament, and then in the 4th round, in steps 45th ranked 18-year-old Kathy Horvath. So this kind of came out of nowhere for this one. But so in this match, Martina, her coach, and what I feel is some bad advice, gave her some advice on how to play this match, told her to just wait back and wait for Kathy to make mistakes, then become aggressive. And that was the killer, because Kathy played this very aggressive. Horvath she wins the first one 6-4. In the first set, she was charging the net, being aggressive on the court, taking control. Martina was hanging back, not coming up, playing to her strengths. And then Martina would pull off the second set to tie it up at 1-1. But then in the third set, Horvath broke serve, and she takes home the victory. The interesting thing about this is Horvath lost in the next round. And then Martina, she would go on after this tournament. She would finish the year of 1983 with an 86-1 record. 86-1. So her only loss came here to Horvath. And that's the closest season ever to perfection, which, we've obviously never seen in women's tennis. So just an insane upset. And all of our upsets today are going to be insane. You're going to be like, wow, I can't believe that happened. And let me come to you with this one, because you have played Martina. What are your thoughts first off on how to beat her? And what do you think of this upset?
Martina was an aggressive player. I mean, she was not one to hang at the baseline like Chris Evert. And I think the clay courts certainly favored Kathleen. And ironically, in 84, I lost to Kathleen in the round of 16. I remember everyone saying, well, she beat Martina here last year. And I got beat badly in the 4th round by Horvath the next year at Roland Garros. So I do remember specifically that she pulled off that big win, but it wasn't a big surprise to me, because Kathleen was a great competitor, and she was playing Martina, even though she was in top form, that was not her strong surface. And I think she got a little nervous, and she wasn't as aggressive as she probably should have been. And obviously you probably don't know the weather that day, but I imagine the courts were super slow, which would have favored Kathleen even more. And the cooler the weather, the slower the courts, my point. So
how much does in tennis, how much does a coach play in a match?
I mean, some, but listen, one of the beauties of the sport is you're out there on your own and you got to figure it out, you know, and it's never change a winning game, never change a winning game, always change a losing game. And Martina's enough of a champion to know, and certainly to know what she does best. But again, you know, you can have a little bit of an off day on your not your best surface, and a really good player can take advantage of that opportunity. And I'm sure that's clearly what Martina did. And as we talk about another little upset in a minute that you told me about, I think a similar thing happened where somebody thinks that, you know, I'm going to win this, no problem. And then all of a sudden they find themselves in trouble. And then you have to sort of claw your way out of it. And Kathleen's was a great competitor.
Just in your opinion, 86-1, is that the greatest women's tennis year ever?
I mean, it's certainly right up there. I mean, losing only one time in a year is incredible. She won 3 slams that year as well. And when Martina was on, I mean, she was super, super strong, especially with that lefty serve. And she was overpowering. And plus, she had just sort of adopted the real true fitness regime off court. I think she was training with Nancy Lieberman at that time. And, you know, she was really a pioneer when it came to going to the gym and really working hard on your fitness and your diet. And, you know, it certainly worked for her. So.
And she had finally overcome the Chris Evert effect. She was, at that point, had won 8 of the last 10 after being dominated for several years by Evert. So she was had definitely moved into her prime there. But well, let's move to our next one. Brad, why don't you go next?
Speaking of Chris Evert, I drew the Everett Margaret Court match from the 1970 Charlotte Open. This match took place during the semifinals of that tournament on clay on September 9th, 1970. Margaret Court is from Australia. Chris Evert is born in my state, the state of Florida. Everett was only 15 years old when this match took place. Court had just 2 weeks prior come off achieving the second calendar year Grand Slam. She was almost unbeatable. She started 1970 winning 21 straight tournaments. Court was warned that Everett should be taken seriously. As Ann just said, sometimes hearing that, the player not doing that, is what cost her that. Court committed 14 double faults. She was seen very nervous, which was unlike Margaret Court. This was... Again, Everett won 7-6, 7-6 in straight sets. This achievement was called the biggest upset in 1970.
Well, ironically enough, Chris had won the 16 nationals that year in 1970 in my hometown of Charleston, West Virginia, and I was a ball girl for her. So she was
cool.
The inspiration for me. And I was fortunate enough to play doubles with Chris in 1986, and we beat Steffi Graf in the finals of the Hilton Head tournament in doubles. And I will tell you, there are 3 players that if I had to pick somebody to play for my life, one would be Chris Evert, 2 would be Jimmy Connors, and I think you know where I'm going with the 3rd. It's Rafael Nadal. So Chris is a strong competitor. And probably not the greatest athlete, but mentally she was the best. I mean, she gave you very few free points. Martina, you know, could have a couple bad games or play a couple loose points. Chris didn't really play loose points, and I'm not surprised. Especially again, she was playing Margaret Court on a clay court, not to her advantage. I guess the lesson here is, you know, you can never underestimate your opponent, even if they're 15 years old. And Chris won in I believe it was 2 tiebreakers, correct?
Correct.
And back then it was a 9-point tiebreaker. So you only had to win by 1 point. So it was, you know, 5-4. And, you know, Chris showed very little emotion and knew how to compete from a very young age, and certainly carried that on. I think, she won 18 Grand Slams and was in how many Grand Slam finals? I think I wrote it down here, 34 Slam finals. So not a surprise to me. And plus there was an age difference too. I think it was, 12 years or so that Margaret Court was older than Chris. So
does it take away at all from this one the fact that we know that Chris Evert would go on to be arguably a top 5 player all time? Like, does that maybe take away a little bit from this upset?
I think when you're an adult, if you lose to a 15-year-old, it hurts from that respect. But again, she went on to be certainly one of the greatest clay court players to ever play the game. And I think Margaret Court was extremely successful on grass, because back then they played the Australian on grass, Wimbledon on grass, the Grand Slams that she won in all categories, but certainly still holds the record for singles. And like I said, if I had to pick somebody to play for my life and it was a female, I would pick Chris.
All right, let's go to Rollo.
So 2015 U.S. Open, Roberta Vinci versus Serena Williams. It's not the rankings that made this, in my opinion, the biggest upset in history, because Vinci was 43rd in the world and Serena was number 1. It's where they were in their careers. Serena had 21 major wins up to that point, and Vinci had never been past the 4th round. And Serena was dominating. She was looking for the calendar slam, which hadn't been done since Steffi Graf in 1988. But it was the way she lost, So, that's one of the most prestigious achievements in tennis is the calendar slam. And this person who hadn't made it past the 4th round comes in and defeats one of the greatest of all time, who on our show we deemed the greatest of all time. So that's why it stands, in my opinion, as the greatest upset of all time, simply because of who Serena was versus who she was playing.
Well, I remember that match because I was at the U.S. Open that year. And don't forget, Da Vinci was #1 doubles player in the world. So she was crafty. She had a wicked slice backhand. And if I remember correctly, Serena had 40 winners and 50 unforced errors or something crazy like that. I mean, she had a very rocky match where her rhythm was, I think, disrupted by that backhand. And I think, again, that she maybe didn't take someone as serious as she should have, but not to go too far in the future. But I really loved Ash Barty in the way she plays, because she was able to throw that slice back in a lot and disrupt the rhythm. And that's exactly what Da Vinci did to Serena in 2015 at the Open. And also, I mean, she says the pressure didn't affect her, but you got to feel that. I mean, you're on the verge of, and there've been so much hype about it. Everybody was talking about it, as you all remember. And I think there were just a couple points in that match that could have gone either way, and Serena would have won, because I think Da Vinci had, 20 winners and 19 unforced errors. So they both were sort of split with their winners and unforced errors. But I really think that slice backhand and her slow pace just threw off her normal rhythm of just, hitting the daylights out of the ball.
And Rollo, Serena, she was ranked #1 at that point, right?
She was #1, yes.
She was #1. Okay, yeah, I just want to double check on that. Well, let's move into our final one tonight. And I drew the short straw, so I got stuck with 2 here tonight. But so not all upsets are alike. And I say that because this one was on the biggest stage of them all. This was Wimbledon. And to me, that means a little more than anywhere else. So defending champion Steffi Graf, and I might add this, that Steffi Graf had won Wimbledon 91 to 97. Every year this year she won straight. So she places, or she goes against unseeded, not even a seed, Lori McNeil. And it's 2 sets. McNeil wins 7-5, 7-6. But for Graf, she becomes the first defending champ to lose in the first round there at Wimbledon. And Horvath, she would lose in the semifinals to eventual winner Conchita Martinez, of course. And this was like it was a crazy match. The weather was really bad. Some say that the rain was a big factor in this. And I know I saw a quote from Steffi, who actually first go with Stephanie now, but back then it was still Steffi. I saw a quote from her that said that, yeah, the rain threw me off a little bit, but we both did have to play in those conditions. So, I mean, you could kind of look at it as maybe a little sour grapes or whatever, but they both did have to play in those conditions. And then, so this was the first round loss for Steffi. This was her first round loss since 1984. So that was huge news all in itself. But in my opinion, why this one is the best, and keep in mind, I also represented the Martino one a little bit ago, but I feel that this one is the best for a couple of reasons. One, you get it at Wimbledon. Two, it's a loss in the first round. No other ones that we're talking about tonight were a loss in the first round. And three, it's to an unseeded player, which this is also the only unseeded one, I believe, that we're talking about tonight. So, Anne, I ask you with this one, Wimbledon is, like I said, it's just bigger. It's the grandest stage. Does that add to the appeal of this one?
Well, Lori is a friend and someone who I played doubles with and played against. And if you had to play her on grass, I don't care who you are, you would be scared. She had a phenomenal grass court game. She had a great serve and great volleys, and her backhand slice was one of the best in the business. So you could understand if she was able to, what she did, direct a lot of balls to Graf's backhand. She was just digging balls out of the grass to get him up, and Lori, I'm sure, was at the net closing it off. So this was just probably the worst first round match that Steffi could have had against an opponent who could have won Wimbledon. I mean, she lost to Conchita in the semis, I believe, and 10-8 in the third. And she was probably points away from the final. And then, so anything could have happened there. But again, the pressure, I mean, I'm sure Lori got out to a great start, played the big points well, and she was as tough as anybody. It's tough as Martina on grass if she was playing well. So that not a surprise of all the ones we've talked about. This is the one that not a surprise. But all the four upsets we spoke about, the player that won and got the upset was on their best surface. So it wasn't like Lori beat Steffi on clay, or Kathleen beat Martina on, hard courts. So, that the thing with Serena and Vinci, that was kind of even. I mean, Vinci's more of a clay court player, but the rest of them, they were on their best surface to pull that upset off.
And I might add that I mentioned the rain. There were those interruptions made this thing 3 hours long.
But that is something you just have to deal with, and it's tough because you have to stop and start and warm up and get out there and really stay focused. And it's really whoever is the strongest mentally to deal with the conditions is going to prevail.
And you'd actually mentioned something that I had read too. The Graf's backhand was slicing all game long. And was that because of the style that was being played by McNeil?
I mean, she could hit over it a little bit, but she really didn't. I mean, she really ran around that thing to hit that big forehand, and her footwork was phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. And Steffi, I remember the first time I saw her play in Australia in the early 80s, and I mean, she was on the practice courts every night until it was dark. I mean, she was, I think, 15 at the time. I mean, she really, really was super duper focused and driven and had, phenomenal footwork and setup for that big forehand. And that was her game. Plus she had good court speed. She was quick and a big serve. She had a nice first serve. So.
Well, let's move into our vote here tonight. Brad, you're in my upper corner. Who are you taking?
You know what, Mike? I'm going to go with Steffi Graf, the last one you just mentioned. That's my vote.
Okay. All right. Rollo?
The upset of Steffi Graf.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for me, it's tough. I don't know. I just when I look, Brad, when I look at yours, like I look at it, I'm like, I know she's 15, but it's still Chris Evert, you know? It's like it's still Chris Evert.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Serena's the GOAT, in my opinion. I didn't think that 2 years ago when we did our greatest women's debate, but I do think that now. So I'm gonna go with the Serena upset. So Ann, we come to you. You can vote for any of the four.
Gosh, they're all pretty good. Definitely not the Steffi Lori, because I knew, you know, on a good day she could definitely beat her. I think I have to go with the Serena upset too, because I think that shocked a lot of people, and certainly the fans. And although it was exciting that they had an all Italian women's final that year at the U.S. Open, but I think that was a real upset.
There you have it. That's 2 votes for Serena and 2 votes for Steffi. In our show, when we have a tie, the winning vote goes to the special guest, which of course was Ann. She's picking the upset of Roberta Vinci in the 2015 U.S. Open over Serena Williams. So win for Rollo. Good job, guys. Let's move into our Q&A. Rollo, you got the win. You get first question, and then Brad, you'll follow him.
So, Ann, I live 10 minutes from IMG, which was back in the day, the Nick Bollettieri Academy. What was it like training over there and getting to train with probably the greatest tennis coach of all time?
Well, I trained at the Colony on Longboat Key before it went to IMG, so going a little further back. But it was crazy. Nick was like, you know, like the circus came to town, and everybody wanted to hang around Nick, and we all played, and it was a lot of fun, and we all certainly learned a lot. And in fact, Pablo Araya, who trained with me, he's from Peru. He was with me, and Jimmy Arias and Paul Anacone, when we were all with Nick at the Colony as kids. And now Pablo, I got him working at the Beverly Hills Tennis Club with me teaching. So we're back, we're reunited and back together. But you know, it was a wonderful time to be in the early stages when Nick was spreading his magic, and then really starting his whole academy philosophy and building his coaching stable. And that's what he did. And anybody that worked with him loved his quirky style and the way he motivated you. And it wasn't so much about technique, but he was a disciplinarian, and he taught you a lot of life lessons as well, and made you really believe in yourself. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to work with him.
Go ahead, Brad.
And I'm not the biggest tennis fan, but I do want to attend Wimbledon one of these days. That's on the bucket list. What is it like playing there? And what is it like being an American tennis player playing there, being that the history between England and America from way back to the Revolutionary War and all that stuff?
You know, to be perfectly honest, I never played well there, and I should have played well there. It suited my game, but it was very uptight, and I'm a little bit more of a free spirit, so to speak, and a lot of rules, as you know. And right. It was not the most relaxed atmosphere for me. It's certainly the most prestigious and intimidating, but it was not my favorite place to play. I love the atmosphere at the U.S. Open. I love the French Open in Paris as well. And those were my 2 finest tournaments where I had my best results. So for me, if I'm happy and loving where I'm playing, I seem to play a little better. So plus it rained all the time.
Yeah, Wimbledon's known for that. But so I'm going to ask you the question that you probably get asked the most, but you know, some of our viewers might not be familiar with the situation. Wimbledon, 1980s, a lot different than what we see now in the 2020s here. So you wore an outfit that brought attention. That, I mean, gosh, now it would be considered extremely conservative in
Right, exactly.
tennis game. But how was it for you, seeing like kind of the little backlash that came afterwards, and what were your just thoughts on that whole situation? It seemed way overblown to me, but what were your thoughts?
Well, I started wearing the tights because at the time my boyfriend was the head of Nike tennis globally, and he had gotten some tights from the '84 Olympics from Flojo. Nike had some tights made, and so he got me some tights to practice in, and I thought, oh my God, these are amazing. They keep my legs warm. I love these, and I'm 5'11", and I said, it's a joke one day. I said, oh, can you imagine a white bodysuit at Wimbledon? Wouldn't that be funny? And then, long story short, I'll try to keep it short. We, at the French Open, we met a guy, a friend, Carlo Grippo, who ran Nike Italy. And we told him, and he said, oh, it's a great idea. I'll have it made. I'll have it sent to you in England. Well, there was one problem. I was under contract with Pony Clothes and Shoes, and Nike did not want to buy my contract out. They didn't think it was a good idea at the time. And so Carlo in Italy sent me 2 suits to London, and they didn't arrive till Thursday of the first week. I was set to play Pam Shriver on Monday, but it rained the first 3 days. So by the time we played our match, it arrived that morning, and I had to wear both suits. One was a sleeveless and one was long sleeve because they were so sheer. And I was like, oh my God, I can't wear that. It's too much. But basically, I believe in fashion and function, and I think the players now finally have a way to express themselves with their apparel. And I don't think women should be told, what you wear to work, as long as you're not hurting or offending someone. And I really thought it was fashion and function, depending on the environment and the weather. I mean, it was cool over there. I started my match at almost 7 o'clock at night. It stays late there. The match got called due to darkness at 8:30 in the evening, 8:45. We were at a set all. So I was really more about fashion and function. And I think as we can look back on that time, in '85, you look at Lululemon. I don't even want to go into what their sales are yearly or whatever, but I mean, it's become the rage. Everybody lives in yoga pants. I mean, at the club now, most of these people playing tennis, if it's a little cool in LA, they're wearing tights. So there is something to it. And, it took a while to catch on, but I'm glad people are wearing tights.
And we know the compression is good for the body when you're doing sports. I mean, we saw years Allen Iverson would wear the compression arm sleeves. So, I mean, it just makes sense. So,
I mean, like swimmers, they were wearing those suits, to improve their times or, and it was, a choice that they want to make. And I think, back then, men were controlling what women could wear. And certainly the eyes of the All England Club, the rule was what is predominantly white and must be suitable in the eyes of the All England Club. So, I mean, I was 24, I was a bit of a maverick, and I was like, oh, well, it's all white, trying to, but I did believe in the tights, and I still do. And I think if a player can wear something that can increase their performance or prevent an injury, they should be able to do it.
One more each, guys, same order.
Kind of piggybacking off my last question, you were part of an excellent documentary, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Love Means Zero. How did you get involved in that, and what was your role in helping that get started?
Well, I had lunch with Nick. I think it was the end of 2014. And he said, Annie, they're paying me $900 an hour, and he took me on a tour of IMG, and I looked at this academy and I was like, holy smokes, Nick, I can't believe what you did. I said, somebody needs to do a movie on this. Let me go back to LA and see what I can do. And so I went back to Los Angeles, and one of my good friends, Jill Mazursky, is a documentary producer and writer. And I said, I think there's a story here. Nick's an amazing coach. He had 10 #1 players. He didn't really play. He's been married 8 times. He's great and fun to be around. He changed my life. And 100,000 other kids' lives with all the people that he coached. And we have a family home on Longboat Key, and it's across the street from where the Colony used to be. And I walk that beach every time that I'm back in Florida, and the Colony, before it was torn down, was in disrepair for 7 years, and it was vacant. And there were mattresses up against the windows. It was like somebody left there in the middle of the night. And I thought, oh, we've got to shoot Nick on that front court. And that's where I trained every day, on the court that we shot with Nick talking. And so it was just something that I had a feeling, and I had an idea, and I thought, you know, I was one of Nick's early students, and he changed my life, and I was grateful. And I thought his story was incredible. And so I just sort of made it my mission it took me 4 years to gather some people, and finally Showtime thought it was a great idea too. And we got a movie made, and we were nominated for a Sports Emmy, and you know, it was a real labor of love. And you know, I was a producer on the project, so.
Brad.
I'm glad you liked it.
And as a tennis player, I have to ask, what was your favorite surface to play on?
Probably a hard court. I mean, I did okay on grass, but and I love indoors. No wind, no rain, no sun. But probably a hard court. I like the ball sitting right up. Certainly playing in Florida, as you know, it can be windy and it's tricky there. But I'd have to say a hard court. A nice, fast hard court.
So I'm going to make my final question here, a two-parter. So your doubles record is over 500. I know that you've played with several different partners. So I was wondering, the first part of the question is, who was your favorite partner and why? And then second part question, Beverly Hills Tennis Club. I mean, that's one of the more prestigious clubs here in America. So how did you get involved to be running that show?
Well, with the doubles, I love doubles. I mean, it was always fun to have someone else out there and playing. I mean, Betsy Nagelson, who's from St. Petersburg, we got to the semifinals of the French and the US Open, lost to Martina twice, and Pam Shriver. And she was a lot of fun to play with. I played with Chris Evert. We won Hilton Head. I learned a lot from playing with Chris, and that was a great experience. Mary Lou Daniels, we won a couple tournaments together. We played in the juniors, and then we played professionally, so that was fun. Leslie Allen's another player so, you know, I play with a lot of different people, and I feel lucky that I had that opportunity, and I was able to, you know, do pretty well in doubles. I finally won a tournament in singles the last year that I played, which was sort of my Achilles heel, and I got over that. So that was good. But regarding the club, I had a whole separate career for over 20 years in the wholesale watch business. I worked for Cartier and Jaeger-LeCoultre, traveling around the world in the luxury goods arena. So I had this idea for the movie, the documentary, and then we had our production meetings at the Beverly Hills Tennis Club, which was started by Charlie Chaplin and Groucho Marx in the 1920s. So they couldn't get in the LA Tennis Club. They didn't let movie stars in over there. So they decided to open their own tennis club. And it's a very small, quaint little club in Beverly Hills that only has 5 courts. And we were at a meeting one day, and the president of the club took me aside, or saw me, and said, "Hey, Ann, you know, Russell's leaving the pro. He'd been there for 17 years. And what are you doing? Would you want to come, you know, be the head pro?" And I thought about it, and I've been hanging around Nick for 4 years trying to get this movie made. And so I got back into tennis. I was out of it with my other career. And then now, and it's been great because I wasn't burnt out. I had that whole other separate career there. And then the movie really kind of got me back into tennis. And now I work with a lot of kids, and it's very rewarding. I had no idea how fun and rewarding it would be to help people improve their tennis game. So. And
Excellent.
Tommy plays there a lot, which is really nice. He's a terrific guy. And another former student of Nick's. He plays at the club quite a bit. And then, you know, he runs the Indian Wells tournament that's coming up next month in Palm Springs. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, we want to thank you, Ann White, for coming on. We
of
appreciate
course.
you
I'm
being
sorry it
here.
took me a while to get connected there, but.
No, not a problem. We're glad we were able to get this worked out. We really appreciate it. I know you're on a totally different time schedule than us too, so opposite sides
It's
of the
late.
country
It's
here.
late for you guys. Not too late here, but so nice meeting you all. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
I'll
you.
remind everybody, hit that like and subscribe button as well, and we'll see y'all next time. Thank you for watching. Have a
All
great
right. Bye,
night.
guys. See you later.